You're listening to the Bible Belt Bros podcast with my dad and his dumb friend. Enjoy!
I play at a church in Tulsa, and I don't know. We play lots of songs that came out when I was in high school. And Andrew, you and I grew up Baptist, right?
Right.
And you remember singing those hymns every Sunday morning.
I do.
You remember us going to a contemporary service and bringing in the drums, but then they made it at 8 a.m. where the only people that were up that early were the traditional people. And so you couldn't even play the drums loud. Still had to have it turned down a lot.
Yep. I remember starting that contemporary service.
Yeah.
That was a big to-do.
Well, I remember growing up kind of hating hymns. As far as, like, you're singing the same songs, like, every week kind of thing. Obviously, the organ and piano doesn't help, the instrument stuff side of it. But I just remember growing up thinking, when I grow up, I'm not going to be that kind of person that is set in my old music songs, and that's all we're going to play, and we're going to play nothing new. Like, I just was trying to make it a point that I'm not going to be that old guy stuck on hymns type of thing. Well, and now I see the churches, the contemporary songs of that day are, like, churches seem like they go to a contemporary service and then they stop learning new songs. And so, like, I play at this one church and we're playing, like, I could sing of your love forever. Or better is one day in your court.
I still like those songs.
Yeah, I still like them, but as kind of, it's fun. That's why I like to play at that church, because it's actually kind of fun to go back to those songs. Like, I'm playing a djembe, and I haven't played that since just right after high school, and so it's kind of a good memory to go back type of thing. But man, if I was doing that every week and we've been singing those same set of 15 songs in a rotation, I just think it's like,
I'd probably leave that church.
The choruses of yesterday are the hymns of today, I guess, if I said that right.
All the hymns back when they were created. People probably thought those were contemporary.
Yeah, exactly. Remember there was a pastor one time that was preaching at our church growing up, and he was like, you can learn, I don't know if he said golly, but you can learn more from this hymnal than you can from the Bible.
Yep. And he stayed around a little bit. That's how messed up that church was.
Yeah. It is just fun. I mean, music is a huge thing in churches, obviously. And now I think churches try to use music to impress non-Christians to come to their church. I was doing a Tulsa run. It's a 15K. And, like, every kilometer, you saw some church band on the side of the road, playing.
Wow.
With their big banners and there's, that kind of thing.
That's neat. I wonder if the organizers orchestrated that, actually.
I don't think they're like that every year. Like, it's all in there, all the ways the same bands in the same places. I think it's like just their thing. Like, there's 10,000 people running this race today. We're gonna
play music for them.
And like, some of them are they're not even the band. They're just playing loud worship songs, but it's like old worship songs. I don't know. I just think it's funny. Like,
do they break out the organs?
No, not that old of worship. I'd say like 90s, like early Chris Tomlin songs. David Crowder, first album. I just think it's funny. People are trying to. It just seems like they're trying to impress people with, like, look, we got cool music too. But it's Christian. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It seems like that's what we try to do, is we try to be more contemporary to try to bring in more of a non-Christians into attract them into church or make them feel welcome when, there's some churches that will open up with a secular song, and that's the whole idea of that is it will make the non-believer when they're in church be like, yeah, like, oh, I know this song. Maybe I'm not, I guess, not a heathen or whatever because I like this song because they're playing this song. Minus a few words they changed.
Yeah. kind of lessen their guilt.
Yeah, and I guess it's to drop the walls or whatever. The seeker-sensitive movement.
That's what we're talking about today, isn't it?
Yeah, ever heard of it?
Not until the other day when you brought it up.
Oh. Well, I have a friend I was talking to, and he told me this clip, and we'll play it real quick. It's from R.C. Sproul, I believe. And let's just play it, and then we'll talk about it.
What are your thoughts about the seeker-sensitive movement, as it is called?
What was that?
The seeker-sensitive movement. Your thoughts?
Oh, my. Oh, it's a very, very bad thing. Very bad. Because it rests on a fundamental error. The assumption is that unbelievers outside the church are desperately seeking for God. Number one. The second fundamental error is that the purpose of corporate worship on Sunday morning is to reach the lost. Now, why are those the two fundamental errors? The first one is that the Bible makes it absolutely clear that in our natural condition, in our fallen state, no one seeks after God. The only people who seek after God are those who have been already born again. Seeking after God begins with regeneration. We are the seekers. Now, Aquinas had to answer this question in his day when people said, it sure seems to me that my next door neighbor is searching after Christ, but he's not a believer, and yet the Bible says nobody searches. What's with that? And Aquinas said, here, you see people all around you that are searching for peace of mind, for happiness, for relief from guilt, for meaning and significance to their lives, and you watch them searching desperately for these things, and you say, well, the only thing that can give them that is Christ. And so you assume then that they're searching for that which only God can give them, the benefits of God. They therefore must be seeking after God. Aquinas says no. He said the problem with fallen man is that we seek for the benefits that only God can give us, while at the same time we're fleeing as fast and as hard as we can from Him. That's right. So the seeker out there is not seeking for God. He's seeking for a hiding place from God. So get that straight. Second of all, worship is to be the corporate gathering together of the people of God for worship. Okay? Now you always assume that there's going to be some tares along with the wheat, and there's going to be unbelievers present in the worship, and you got to be sensitive to that, as Paul indicates to the Corinthians. So that you have to, at some point, address the lost in your sermon. But fundamentally, what's going on on Sunday morning are the believers gathering on the Lord's Day to attend the study of the sit at the feet of the apostles, to gather for prayer, for worship, adoration, the celebration of the Lord's Supper. And what we should be most concerned about in our worship is what is it that pleases God, right. Not what is it that pleases the unbeliever. This is one of the great tragedies of our day, I think. And it's going to really cost the church. And it's not going to take a long time. It already has cost the church.
Here's what I found, just in terms of observing this, and R.C. got to the deep level. Let me get to the level you're likely to see. Here's the logic. It's a pretty seductive logic, which is if you scratch people where they now itch, they'll be more open to hearing the gospel. And the logic is that if you help them to know how to have a better bank account and more obedient children and greener grass and well manicured lawn and whatever else they're trying to help them with, and you do a sermon series on this and a sermon series on that, you'll earn their trust because you actually met their needs. This is explicit in the methodology. So they'll then trust you when you talk to them about the gospel. Two problems with that. Number one, it doesn't work. And number two, in a lot of these places, they never even get to talking about the gospel. You just come back later, they're still on green grass. And now instead of dealing with preschoolers, it's dealing with teenagers. But it's just, in other words, we actually never get to it. And I'll tell you, just to look phenomenologically at this, look at how many big churches were built on this methodology, and their back door was larger than their front door. That's right. And you just don't have a church left.
It's also a strategy of unbelief in this regard. We're still looking for Joseph's pants. Now, what do I mean by that? In the last sermon that Martin Luther ever preached, 2 days before he fell ill and died, he preached on the gospel, and he preached on his concern that despite of the awakening of the Reformation and the recovering of the light of the gospel, which was now being preached and was available to the people were still addicted to relics. And rather than read the scriptures, they would go to Trier, where they had in their relics the pants of Joseph or a vial of milk from the breast of Mary. And what he was saying is that what people were looking for was power. And they believed that there was power in the pants of Joseph. Now, we don't go around looking for the pants of Joseph now. Now the power is in the program. Whereas what Luther says, then what we've been hearing and what we just heard from your message is that the power of the Holy Ghost is mediated in and through the Word.
Amen.
When are we going to believe that? That's what I say, it's a strategy of unbelief. The minister wants to grow his church. The minister wants to see success. And so he's looking for all these programs, all these techniques to get people to come in. But he never goes over the bridge and gets to the Word. If you want a power in your church, be an expository preacher. Preach the Word. Because that's where the Spirit is. Isn't that God's strategy?
Yes.
And if we believe God's strategy, we're going to preach the Word.
Amen. In season.
And I'm preaching now.
All right, Andrew, so what are your first thoughts about this guy?
All right, so my first thought is, who in the world is this guy? Who is R.C. Sproul? Can you answer that?
I actually don't know. I just know it's my friend heard him.
Okay, so I had to look him up. It says he's an American Calvinist theologian, author, and pastor. He's a founder and chairman of Legionnaire Ministries and can be heard daily on Renewing Your Mind radio broadcast.
So you don't like him because he's a Calvinist?
No, that's not necessarily why I don't like him. I don't like him based off of the fact that he just comes out and says that this whole seeker movement is wrong. He doesn't even give it a chance. He doesn't even entertain the thought. He immediately puts his opinion out there without, what I don't like.
Sounds a lot like one of my best friends named Fish.
What I like, no, because I don't necessarily care for a seeker-sensitive church, but they're very valuable churches. Matter of fact, the church we go to, I would consider a seeker-sensitive church. Life Church, I would consider a seeker-sensitive church.
Well, in most contemporary churches, I think would, they go on to say, like it said on there, that seeker-sensitive is not really a terminology you'd use anymore. It's now like the underlying, I guess, foundational principles that still are in most contemporary churches now.
So for those of you who, didn't really pay attention to what seeker-sensitive was, Dusty, what is a seeker-sensitive?
Well, to me, a seeker-sensitive church is something where they're doing everything in their service to make the non-Christian more welcome and more comfortable. They're attracting them by, I don't know.
Their programs, their music, their
programs are music, but even the sermon terminology. Like, you want somebody who's hurting in their marriage, invite them to church this Sunday. We're going to give them 3 principles to heal their marriage, and then they build their trust with those principles, and then they'll maybe keep coming, because their marriage is getting better based on biblical principles, and then then they try to basically use that and to give your whole life to Christ.
And here's where I have the problem with R.C. Sproul's is we need places like that, churches like that, because if we do it the way R.C. wants to do it, we're not going to be able to reach a certain demographic. The demographic that the seeker-sensitive church does reach. The people who, are ashamed of going in a church in the first place would never step in a church like R.C. Sproul's. They will step in a church like ours or like a Life Church because of the atmosphere. It's a darker, the lights are more dimmed. Even as you walk into the lobby, just the lights are dimmed.
You can get in and get out without being noticed.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. You can't get into our church, in and out of our church without being noticed. You can
if you show up 5 minutes late, like most people.
No, we still have 6 people in the lobby waiting for those people.
Oh yeah. Well, so does like a Life Church or a Church on the Move. Those churches, they have people positioned to be greeters and welcomers.
Yeah.
But you can get through those by like just saying hi and stuff.
Oh, you think you can?
I do all the time when I go to Life Church, when I go to Church on the Move, Christmas thing.
Yeah, Life Church is different though. I would say
they have multiple people just there. People as you come in the doors, they're greeting you. People like strategically looking like, hey, there's free coffee and free whatever over here. There's people handing you stuff as you walk in the main doors.
I'm more talking about, say, our church. Because when we see a new person, we intentionally approach them, we talk to them, we create conversation, and then we walk with them to another one of our stations, in which we do a soft handoff, in which we tell them the person's name, we tell them it's their first time, and then that station talks to this person, and then we take them to the next station. So when you come into our church, you are personally greeted and walked around and handed off, and so you're not getting through our church. Life Church, they're just so big, and they've gotten it. Now, people at Life Church, they have this mass training program, and I'm not trying to knock down on Life Church. What I believe Life Church is doing is amazing, and they reach people that our church won't reach, and that the churches that like R.C. Sproul's preaches at won't reach. So don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing Life Church. I love Life Church, and I do attend it occasionally. But they have a mass training program in which everybody is just quickly pushed through because they're so large. They need all these volunteers, and they need them ASAP, and so they're pushed through. They're not taught a one-on-one one-on-one of handling with new people, and they're not taught to walk them from station to station.
Have you served at Life Church?
I have not, but I have gone through their training.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So have I. And mine was different, I guess.
Oh, so mine wasn't. I went through it because when I got put in charge of guest services at our church.
I guess it's more ongoing training. Like there's a main person that observes the people, and so so it's like you get kind of like the overall, like you're saying, like a generic kind of training. Then they kind of tweak stuff here and there if they notice things. And so I mean, that's how I've heard it. It wasn't in the guest services side. It was in a small group leadership side, I guess. But
yeah, I went through the guest services side of it with a good friend of ours that works there. He was able to get me into it because when I took over as guest services, I went through their training as well as a couple other churches, and then I just took the best parts of everything and combined it. And that's where ours came from. So that's why we have the soft handoffs at our church, and that's why everybody is greeted at least 3 times before hitting this auditorium or sanctuary at our church. Getting back to seeker-sensitive church and the seeker-sensitive movement or whatever it was.
Probably more movement now than church.
I like it. I think we need it. It reaches those at ordinary churches. The First Baptist of whatevers aren't going to reach, or the First Methodist of whatevers aren't going to be able to reach because they're so stuck in their ways. They're stuck with their rituals. This is what time we get here. We sing 3 or 4 songs at this time. We do our prayer. We do our sermon. We say amen, and we go to lunch.
What I see, though, I'm different, but I don't really see it that way. I guess that hardcore, like you're saying it, because I do believe that the back door of seeker-sensitive churches movement is just as open as the front door.
I agree
And
with that.
I can say it this way, like, because their goal is to get as many non-Christians saved as possible, get as many people saved, like,
Right.
and so what happens, and it's really funny because I think in the overall feeling is most churches now are trying to be more seeker sensitive. Like, I just feel like that's the movement side of it. There's not specific churches that are seeker sensitive now. Like, it's just more of a,
I think there are certain churches that are more seeker sensitive. I do agree.
well, yeah,
that
they're more
every
seeker sensitive,
church-
but every church is now trying to be sensitive.
I believe they have a quote unquote program, seeker sensitive program style.
Yeah, and so like what I see is somebody comes to this church and they get a little bit out of it, and then seeker sensitive also usually means it doesn't go very deep, like in study, and
Correct.
it's more of worldly principles of how to have better marriages, better finances, better relationships, better. It's something that will better not just you spiritually, but also your life. Like, that's, you attract people
Well,
with
I
those
think-
kind of sermons. But what I'm saying, to finish my thought as I'm rambling here, is what I've seen even in our church is people kind of get tired of it, or like they feel like at some point they're not growing, and so then they go to another church that's the different style. What you're saying is like Life Church doesn't reach people, but yet it does in a sense, because people, like, at some point, like, they from our church, they've either gone to a Life Church or to a Solace Church or something else, because they've basically gotten all the stuff that they can out of one church, and then they go to another church. And then there's what I think the guy is saying is you're losing fundamental Christian things by trying to be so seeker sensitive. Like in the book Pagan Christianity, that was one of the flaws we see. It's like through time we've slowly lost what the original church was established at, where it wasn't about trying to get them to come to their worship meetings. It was about trying to build relationships with lost people. I don't know.
Here's what I want to know. I want to do some background research on this guy. I want to know how big the back door is at his church. I want to know how many people leave his church. He's
Does he even have a church? Well, and that's the argument that people would have, is my church isn't like that. My church back door is fine.
No.
Or my church.
And I'll agree. The back door at our church is pretty big, but it's not, and it's because we are more of a seeker sensitive church. Once you're saved, there's not much more going on at our church.
Very evangelistic,
right.
And that's mostly seeker sensitive, evangelistic.
Right. And so but then they move on to a church where they're going to get fed more, or they're going
or
to
they
learn more.
don't.
I don't know. Most of the people that leave our church that I still personally know moved on to another church.
Like when you're in sin, you're ashamed, and it's a way to not feel ashamed. You're trying to work better. I don't know. Like, how is he saying it? Like, you would.
I understand what you're saying.
It's just a shelter in the sense of what the bigger root is. And
Right.
so people come and they get their marriage healed, and then you slowly stop coming because what you needed is fixed.
Then that church is not doing their job. Like I'm going to use our church as an example because it's our church. It's what is precious on my mind. We have house churches in which it's supposed to take you to another step.
There's still seeker-sensitive house churches, though.
They are, and I rambled about that last episode. That we are a seeker-sensitive house church, but if the house church is doing its job, it's still going to move them to the next step, in which they're ready maybe to move on to another church that is not seeker-sensitive.
My house church isn't seeker-sensitive.
Your house church isn't sanctioned.
I know. We went rogue.
How do you get a house church kicked out of the house church program at a church, bro? That is epic.
Right.
I applaud you for that one. I've taught you well, my son.
Oh, but it's going. I will tell you this: it's going great. Our house church right now. One, it helps me because I'm more actively involved in planning and listening to the people. Like we're coming together, like coming up with like what lessons we want to do and what things we want to talk about. Like it's just we do communion together. I don't know. It's just we're all more actively involved in growing together and growing to Christ. I don't know. It's great. Like it's just been awesome.
I'm going to say I've been kicked out of churches, but I've never had a house church kicked out of a house church program, let alone led it. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, what you guys did, I like it. And I didn't.
We were necessarily kicked out. We just stopped.
You were given an ultimatum, and you chose
I guess, yeah.
not to follow that, and therefore you were not allowed.
We don't have a I don't know.
Affiliation.
We're way too long on this topic. You're right. We're not sanctioned.
All right. Anyways,
No.
yeah. I'll cut that.
But I do think that this guy overall, like, he comes off very arrogant, very know-it-all-ish, but so does a lot of people. But in this clip, he definitely, in a couple clips I've seen of him actually talking about the same thing, he definitely comes like this know-it-all, like, angry old man is kind of how I kind of view him as. But I think there is some truth to it, you know, like, you would say because big churches like Life Church that are hugely seeker sensitive are making new buildings that they're being really successful. But then you also have, you have churches like ours and other tons of other churches that another church we've been a part of. The people have left that church and they've gone to Life Church, and so I think they're growing by attracting just as many Christians as non-Christians in a sense. Like I
agree with that.
I think they're staying
Also.
bigger because they're attracting. Because it is great. You have like the preaching there is amazing. It's very, very good. The music's decent, but they
Depends on which campus.
it depends on which campus, but that's every church. But they have a paid band, which is great because you know that they practice. You know that they practice and that they're going to know their stuff and that they're committed to it, and that's part of being like crappy bands is always a huge turnoff when you go to a church. And so
It is. As soon as I hear that organ, I'm out the door.
as soon as you just hear like people singing off key or a band missing time or something, you know, like those kind of things, definitely like you lose kind of respect for their professionalism and stuff. I don't know. It's just that's usually like the first 20 minutes of a service is the band. So that can kill your momentum going into the sermon, or it could help it.
So I just read a little bit more on R.C. Sproul. Is it Sproul or Sproul?
I don't know. Who knows?
Anyways.
I don't know him personally. Okay.
Right. And he is a co-pastor at a Presbyterian church. And so that's kind of where he comes from. Presbyterians are more traditional. Where and that used to be the Baptists. Baptists were very traditional and didn't like change, but the Baptist
and with
convention,
Calvinism, like because you hear it all the time, and maybe I'm supposed to believe more that like everybody's searching for, like you've heard everybody's searching for something, and that something is God. You know,
yeah.
There's a God-shaped hole in all of us. You know that song. But yeah, we all have a God-shaped hole, and only God can fill it. And we're all searching. We're trying to fill it with drugs and alcohol and booze and jobs and careers and money. But only God can fill it. You've heard those sermons. And so that's what we believe is that everybody's searching, or has grown up to believe. His belief is from Calvinism is everybody is called like predestination kind of stuff. And so, he's believing that, you know, God seeks us. We don't seek after God because we're in sin. We don't seek God until after He's redeemed us, I guess, is what he's saying. And so Jesus is knocking at the door, and if we answer it, then we can begin continuing to seek Him. I guess it sounds like that's what his theology is on that. And so if you're a seeker-sensitive church, then you believe that people are seeking God, and you're trying to show where God is in their finances and in their marriages and stuff like that. But if you're in his belief, you're believing that people aren't seeking those things, and so to keep the worship service focused on the Christians seeking Christ in that service, I guess is what he's trying to do, and helping like those who do Christian or non-Christians that do show up to the service. He's probably explaining like this is what's going on. Like when Steve Allen's church, when they speak in tongues, he comes and like, well, this is, probably a little different than what you were expecting, and here's what we believe, and I think that's what his theology kind of goes on. So, really comes down to: do you believe people are seeking Christ, or do you believe people are just seeking, or do you believe that Christ is seeking them? Maybe? Question mark?
Normally, Dusty, you don't have to add the question mark in there, but okay.
So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting topic.
It was. It is
whatever.
definitely.
I don't know if we even answered it or what. I don't even know if I know what the answer would be or what I believe, but just random thoughts by Andrew and Dusty. Fish and Hope.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. I heard. Well, I mean, I listened to the clip a good portion for the first time, and then the second time I played it and I turned it off in like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
I was already tired of it.
Because you already prejudged it.
Oh, no. I mean, I had a pretty good... I prejudged it in the first half second when there were 4 old men on the stage.
Exactly, yeah.
I prejudged that.
And that's where, that's why I said you can listen to this and be like, well, they're just old men behind the times.
But then I listened to it before I knew who it was. But then I had to do my research because I didn't agree with it. And so I wanted to know where he was coming from. And that's why I looked him up. And good thing about the internet age, you can find out about people real fast.
Yep.
Find out their beliefs. Find out how they grew up. This guy was ordained in a Presbyterian church when he was young.
And you don't like those Presbyterians?
No, I mean, shoot. I believe my mom was Presbyterian. Somebody in my family is Presbyterian.
Yeah, she's old and very traditional.
No, my mom's not traditional at all.
So your just whole view on Presbyterians?
No, because my mom's no longer Presbyterian.
Oh, she was redeemed.
She was redeemed. She was saved.
So back again, you don't like Presbyterians?
No, I don't have a problem with it.
We're going to continue talking about judging. No, actually, I got to get to work, so we're going to get out of here.